Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to our cozy little corner of the internet. I'm Pen and today I'll be reading Why Bother Trying by Trust Me If You Dare. All lowercase, which I find hilarious because this does have quite a lot of angst in it. This is a one-shot, it's a little over 4,500 words and I love this. Just before we get started, this does have transphobia, gore, violence and torture. So it's rated M. I've made a note of starting to actually tell what rating it is. Anyway, hope you guys enjoy, and here is the summary. Mori's favourite thing to do is to misgender Dazai, and Dazai gets fed up with it and tries to correct him. Mori does not take this well and decides to drill it into Dazai's head that he is in fact a girl. Basically, a torture hurt Confrontation with a bit of transphobia thrown in to make it hurt more. Now, this, as I said, has quite gory details, at least to me, from what I can remember. Because I read this ages ago, so I might stutter over my words a bit, but anyway, hope you guys all enjoyed this, and let's get right into the fic. There was one thing Dazai was grateful for. It was the fact that he passed fairly well. Most people wouldn't assume that he was born a girl, and that meant that, to the majority of the world, Dazai was just an average cis guy. In fact, everything would have almost been perfect, but of course, Mori had to destroy anything that Dazai had for himself. In this case, it meant Mori went out of his way to misgender his subordinate, and even going as far to correct people who referred to Dazai as a guy, knowing full well that Dazai wouldn't attempt to stop him. "Why do you let him do that?" Chuuya asked him one day. They were leaving a mission briefing, and Chuuya had waited until he could make sure Mori wouldn't be able to eavesdrop on them. "Huh? What are you talking about?" "Why do you let Mori misgender you all the time?" Chuuya actually sounded sincere, and that surprised Dazai. Was he actually concerned about him? Dazai shrugged and wiped away his shocked look. It's fine. I doubt he would stop even if I told him off. It's not like I can't handle it." Chuuya gave him a look, trademark, and sighed. "I thought you were a good liar. Every time he does that, you look like a kicked puppy. It's obviously killing you. You need to start standing up for yourself." Dazai rolled his eyes and started to walk away. "You deserve better than this, you know. He shouldn't be treating you like this." Maybe Chuuya was right. Maybe if he didn't do anything, then Mori was never going to stop. And it was true that every time someone called him a girl, he wanted to claw his eyes out. Maybe Mori was doing this to get Dazai to stand up for himself. Maybe it was a test to see if he could actually be a good leader and get what needed to be done. Probably not, but this was going to be But since he was going to be in the mafia for the rest of his hopefully short life, it couldn't hurt to try. The next time Mori misgendered him during an executive meeting, he was talking about the intel about that Dazai had collected and casually referred to him as a girl. Dazai said, interrupting Mori after it happened a few times. Mori stopped and looked over at him, murder written clearly all over his face. "Oh, this was a mistake. Fuck." From the other side of the room, Chuuya was silently encouraging him to say it again. He was already committed and wasn't entirely thinking things through, so Dazai clenched his fist and looked at Mori in the eyes. "I'm not a girl, so stop calling me one." Mori rolled his eyes but didn't respond, continuing the meeting as if there hadn't been interruption. Dazai just smiled lightly when he realized Mori was refusing to talk about him at all using pronouns or gendered language. It might not have been exactly what he had been expecting, but at least it was a small win. When the meeting was over, Dazai wanted to leave with the other executives, but Mori grabbed his shoulder before he could slip away, digging his fingers into his shirt. "Not so fast," he said, his voice sickeningly sweet. "We need to talk." Chuuya shot Dazai a concerned look. He froze in the doorway, looking as if he was going to stay as well, but he eventually left after Mori glaring at him, leaving the two of them alone in the room. Once the door was shut, Mori let go of Dazai, pushing him hard enough to make him stumble. He walked over to the shelf and absentmindedly picked up a scalpel. Dazai tensed up when Mori did so. Shit, he should have kept his mouth shut. Tell me what you said wrong during that meeting. Tell me what you did wrong during that meeting, Mori said. Well, he was in too far now. I don't think I did anything wrong, sir. Mori walked over, scalpel still in hand. Oh really? You think denying my authority is simply nothing? When Dazai didn't respond, Mori sighed. Take off your coat and hold out your arms. Dazai cautiously did, knowing that if he refused, the outcome would be worse. And take off those disgusting bandages. Dazai obeyed and threw them onto the table. He bit his tongue as he warily watched Mori circle around him, as he had to force his arms not to shake. Now tell me, Mori said, voice deceptively calm. What did you do? I suggested you were wrong about my gender. Not only that, Mori grabbed Dazai's wrist, stretching it out even further. You dared do it in front of the other executives. The scalpel slowly ran down across his forearm. Dazai tried his best to stop himself from wincing. The blood ran down his arms and fell onto the floor, staining the carpet. I've tried my best to be patient with you, Mori continued. I've tried to guide you with the best of my abilities, to lead you out of these delusions you're persistent on having. I'm not delusional. The scalpel came down again. Dazai couldn't stop the wince this time. You are fucked up in the head. You are a girl. You always have been and always will be. Do you understand this basic concept? Dazai just stared at the floor. Mori grabbed Dazai's chin and forced him to look him in the eyes. You're just a little girl and this will never change. His grip tightened. Say it and at least pretend to make it seem like you believe it. Dazai forced back all the words he wanted to scream at him but he refused to let Mori win. I'm a guy. Mori slapped him hard. Dazai fell on the wall, holding his cheek as it started to burn. Mori cracked his knuckles. Why do you always have to fight me? I'm trying to save you. I'm trying to stop you from becoming an abomination. Mori grabbed Dazai's arm. Dazai didn't even think before he shoved Mori away. That was a mistake. Mori punched Dazai in the stomach. He kneeled over in an attempt to stumble away, but Mori grabbed Dazai's arms and pinned him against the wall, making sure to push on the cuts to cause him extra pain. Dazai gritted his teeth and tried to throw Mori off of him, but it was to no use. Mori was stronger than him. Get off of me. Mori simply responded by throwing Dazai against the table. His head collided with the edge, and for a second his vision blacked out. Mori grabbed him by the hair and dragged him up so his face was against the table. He punched him in the face. Just admit that you're a girl and we'll get this over and we'll be done with this mess. Dazai threw his hands up, trying to calm Mori down. Now, let's think about this for a second. Mori stabbed the scalpel into Dazai's hand, pinning it to the table. Dazai gasped in pain. Mori grabbed the other scalpel, another scalpel, and took hold of Dazai's free arm. Say it. Dazai shook his head. Mori dug the scalpel into the length of Dazai's arm. He tried to pull away, but Mori held him in place. Tears fell from his face as he struggled in vain to get away. Mori was grinning manically as he tore Dazai's arm apart. There was a knock at the door. Sir, your 8 o'clock meeting is here. What the fuck was that voice? Okay, fuck it. A voice said, I left them waiting in the guest room. Mori sighed and reluctantly put down his scalpel. He pulled out one the one embedded in Dazai's hand, and let it fall to the floor. He walked away and straightened up his clothes. Tell them I'll meet with them soon. Dazai sat up as Mori called for some guards. He clutched his hands to his chest, ignoring how his shirt was already stained red with his blood. Mori cleared his throat. Take her away so I can deal with her later, he told him. Before Dazai could react, he was grabbed by the arms and dragged out of the room. They roughly handled him, digging into his wounds, causing him to cry out in pain. He fought against them, but they didn't even react as they dragged him through the halls of the building. Thankfully, the halls were empty and everyone was gone. Well, most people were. Dazai couldn't even look Chuuya in the eyes as he passed her. They brought him to the elevator as they went all the way down to the basement. They took him down to the dungeon, practically parading him in front of all those locked away down here, showing them how weak the demon prodigy really was. They threw him into a cell, slamming him onto the floor. They shut the door in his face, encasing him in darkness. Of course, solitary cells were designed to make it impossible to be opened from the inside. There wasn't even a lock for him to be able to pick. This didn't stop him from searching and banging on the door as he let out, screaming for someone to listen. No one came to his rescue. He sat there against the wall, his hand now throbbing in pain, as his arms started to feel like they were on fire. He brought them close to his chest and curled into a ball. It wasn't like anyone was able to see. Dazai tried to keep track of time, but after the first few hours, time started to blur. No one ever came to check on him, not to feed him or anything of the sort, so there was no measure of nothing to measure it off of. The only thing he had to assure him that he wasn't dead was the screaming of the prisoners. Every time he heard them, he imagined Mori coming down to deal with him. Any second now, and he would be doing the screaming. He almost preferred the silence. His mind was pressing in on him, making it harder and harder to breathe. He tried to ignore it. It wouldn't be the first time he wore one for too long. But soon it came to the point where he was gasping for air because it was so tight. He reluctantly pulled it off and tossed it into the corner. His ribcage was heavily bruised. He kept his hands near his stomach so he didn't have to feel his chest. More screams, more crying. His mouth tasted metallic and his arms had long gone numb. He'll do almost anything to get out there. When the door finally opened, he could have wept with joy. The lights blinded him, and he didn't fight the guards dragging him out. There was no one walking through the halls he was led through, so he assumed it was night. They took him to Mori's office, and Mori was already at his desk, looking through paperwork like nothing was happening. And as he was brought before him, the guards kicked the back of his legs, forcing him to kneel. Now, Mori said. There's no need for you to do that. You two may go now. The guards left. Dazai cautiously sat up and Mori watched with a grin, setting down what he was working on. His eyes lingered uncomfortably long on his chest, and Dazai made a weak attempt to cover it. I hope this time I've given you for reflection has helped you. Let's say, clear your mind on what your priority should be. Dazai nodded, knowing that fighting him would be useless. Mori stood up and walked over and placed a hand on Dazai's shoulder, causing the other to flinch. Admit the truth and tell me that you're a girl and this will all be water under the bridge. If Dazai closed his eyes, he could pretend that Mori was actually a caring parent. But he would still be able to feel the claws digging into his back and hear how his words were laced with venom. Even then, he was tired of this game. He sighed. I'm a girl. Mori cupped his face with his other hand. You have no clue how happy it makes me to hear you say that. Recovery can be hard, but I'll be there with you every step of the way. Dazai forced back the repulsion. The smile on Mori's face that Mori was giving him was revolting. Mori started to thread his fingers through Dazai's hair. You cut this so short. It's such a shame. You look so pretty with your long hair. You should grow it back again. Dazai nodded, not trusting his voice at the moment. I want you to hear it say it one more time. When Dazai didn't respond, Mori kept pestering him, reaching him down to grab a tight grip on Dazai's cut arm. Dazai gasped out in pain. This is such an important milestone in your recovery. Please just let me hear it again. Dazai balled up his fist and was about to spit it out when Mori said, Wait, let me get my camera so I can record this for later. Mori went to go and set it up, leaving Dazai frozen in his place. Alright, now say it, Mori told him. Dazai obeyed. Mori replayed the video once, twice, 3 times. Dazai hated how high his voice was. Mori smiled and watched his reaction each time. Eventually, Mori got bored of the torment and allowed Dazai to leave, but not before telling Dazai that he was such a good girl and that Mori was proud of him for embracing the truth. It made Dazai want to rip his eyes out, but instead he just smiled and pretended he wasn't breaking apart. As soon as Mori was out of sight, Dazai collapsed against the wall. Since there was still nobody around, he let his mask crack for a few moments. He then got up and walked to his office. Everything was where it normally was, except for the fact that his coat that Mori had given him was folded up neatly onto his desk. Dazai panicked, turning around to see if Mori was behind him, but he wasn't. If Dazai stayed in this building for any longer, he was going to lose it. He actually put his coat on fully for once, so he could hide his bare arms from anyone who saw him. He even tied his waist so no one could see the blood-soaked shirt. He kept his head down, not wanting to talk to anyone. He wanted to go home and tear out his soul and rip himself to pieces. He was shaking as he walked, his eyes blurred in and out from tears that he was holding back. He had no clue how long he had even been in that dungeon, but it was evidently long enough to get to him. When he got to the lobby, he could see the empty streets outside and how dark it was. It had to be the middle of the night, and thankfully there were very few people in the even in the room he was in. Dazai, a voice called out. It was Chuuya. Dazai was so close to getting out, so he started to walk faster and pretended he hadn't heard anything. A few people were looking at him now and whispering. He didn't want to know what they were thinking. Chuuya called out again, but Dazai slipped outside. He figured that he could lose Chuuya in the streets but a few seconds later, Chuuya grabbed him by the shoulders and pushed him against the wall. Dazai tried his best not to react to the fresh wave of pain. Where the fuck have you been, bastard? Chuuya said, scanning over his partner, and based on his reaction, he didn't like what he saw. Dazai pushed him away. Mind your own business. He started to walk away, but a few steps in, a wave of nausea came over him, causing him to stumble into the wall. Chuuya was there to catch him. He practically threw Dazai's arms around his shoulder and hoisted it up, practically carrying the man down the street. I'm fine, Chuuya, he said, trying to push the other away to no avail. I just need sleep. Trust me. Let me get back to my shipping container by myself. Chuuya shook his head. I doubt you'll make the trip. Besides, my apartment's only a few blocks away. I'm taking you there. Dazai tried to protest, but it fell on deaf ears. Once he realized Chuuya wasn't going to change his mind, he stopped fighting and leaned into Chuuya for more support. This didn't seem to make the other happy. Chuuya kept throwing him concerned glances, and Dazai could tell there was a lot of things Chuuya wanted to say but held back. Once inside the apartment, Dazai immediately collapsed onto the couch. Not caring what he looked like, he wrapped his coat tight around himself. Did Chuuya even have the heat on? When Chuuya sat down across from him, he set a bowl of rice on the coffee table. It's a few days old, but it's all I have for the moment. Dazai warily eyed it for a moment before giving in. He sat up and started scoffing it down. It only lasted a few seconds before the nausea took over, forcing him to stop. Chuuya sighed and stared at Dazai like he was trying to find the right words to say. "Stop staring at me like that," Dazai mumbled. I'm not some kind of zoo animal." "All right, it's just, what the hell happened? You've been missing for 3 days." 3 days, huh? Mori sure could hold a grudge." "You're obviously not okay," Chuuya continued. "Karyo said she saw you being dragged away by the guards, but besides that, I know nothing. I tried to get Mori to tell me what happened, but he just played dumb. And here I thought you'd be jumping for joy. There was 3 whole days you didn't have to deal with me." Chuuya didn't respond. He left and came back a minute later with bandages and alcohol wipes. He sat down next to his partner. "Give me your hand." Dazai slid his hand away from him. "Ew, no, I'm not holding your hand." He fake gagged, despite a little part of him that did in fact want to hold hands with him. Chuuya rolled his eyes. Your hand is infected, and your hand is injured and it looks infected. I doubt if I let you do this yourself, you'll clean it. You'll clean it all, so give me your hand before I make you." Dazai groaned but complied. Chuuya immediately started inspecting the injury, and when he saw that Dazai's hand was clearly stabbed, Dazai whispered, "Please don't ask." Chuuya gave him a concerned look but didn't say anything. He immediately started to disinfect it, careful not to agitate the wound as it kept it in as pain-free as possible. Once he was finished, he carefully wrapped it up. Dazai's eyes were starting to droop. The adrenaline he'd been feeling for the past while was starting to fade away. He fought to stay conscious, but here, safe with Chuuya, it was getting hard. "Are you hurt anywhere else?" Chuuya asked. "I'm fine." This is a yes or no question. Why are you being so pushy? But even still, he found himself sliding off his coat to reveal the cuts on his arms. Chuuya grimaced at the sight, and wow, they were way worse than Dazai thought they were. At least 2 of them were infected. They were definitely going to scar, just adding to his growing collection. Chuuya lightly grabbed his arms around the uninjured skin and frantically looked Dazai in the eyes. His mouth was moving, but nothing came out. No, he was asking Dazai if he was okay. Dazai nodded. Don't worry about me." His vision blurred and started squinting to make his eyes wide. Chuuya kept coming in and out of focus. He opened his eyes just to tell Chuuya to calm down, but then a switch went off in his brain and everything went dark. When Dazai woke up, he was lying on the couch with a fluffy blanket wrapped around him. His arms were wrapped up again, and he was wearing a clean shirt. Chuuya was fast asleep on the chair next to him. Dazai slowly stood up and fought the nausea that rose up in him. He stumbled to the bathroom and looked in the mirror, and he looked like hell. There was a giant black circle around his eye, courtesy to the punch Mori had given him. His hair was matted with blood, and considering how fresh the bandages were on his head, he was probably seeing a cleaned up version of this mess. His face was also thinner than usual. His skin awkwardly stretched over his skull in a way that made him seem inhuman. No wonder Chuuya had been concerned. Dazai looked like he already had 1 foot in the grave. Dazai's hands were shaking as he undid one of the bandages on his arm. While they was still looking bad, there was definitely some improvement. As he wrapped himself back up, he watched Chuuya through the mirror as he walked down the hall to him. Was all of this because you asked Mori to gender you correctly? Chuuya asked. Dazai nodded. It was mostly my fault though. I kept fighting him even though I knew it would only make him angrier. I am going to fucking kill him. It won't change anything. What's done is done. How long had Mori been waiting for Dazai to do this? He seemed way too eager to put Dazai in his place. Dazai. By picking a fight with Mori, you fighting the entire Port Mafia. You may be strong, but we would lose. I'm not letting you throw away your life because of something as stupid as this. It's not stupid. Expecting Mori to have basic human decency. It's expecting Mori to have basic human decency. He's not going to change. He's made that abundantly clear. There's nothing more we can do. So you're fine with just rolling over and letting him misgender you all the time? I've dealt with it all my life. No one really takes you seriously. Once you understand that, it becomes easier. Chuuya took him seriously, and that felt good. The waves of euphoria he got whenever he was around him was so addicting. Dazai wondered if he'd ever met other people who make them feel the same. He doubted it, but it was a nice thought. You shouldn't have to be used to it. It's just life. No one gets what they want. Chuuya scrambled to find a response. He eventually settled on it with, I'm sorry. His words were dripping with so much pity. Dazai hated it. Whatever. He could feel Chuuya watching him, his eyes boring down into his soul. It was unnerving. He didn't like this feeling. Dazai pushed past Chuuya. He grabbed his coat and slung it over his shoulders. Right when he opened the door to leave, Chuuya slammed it shut, blocking the exit. Chuuya, move out my way. And what do you think? And what will you do if I don't? Fight me? Don't think for a second you'll be able to pass me. You wouldn't be able to do it if you weren't injured. Dazai rolled his eyes. You're really not going to let me go home? You live in a filthy shipping container, with the only food you have in there is probably canned crab and alcohol. So no, you're staying here until I can say you can leave. This is kidnapping. Even still, Dazai let Chuuya lead him back to the couch, fighting back a smile. Chuuya pushed the half-eaten bowl of rice towards Dazai again, and he reluctantly took another bite. Chuuya grabbed a book from the shelf and sat across from his partner. The book was in French, so Dazai couldn't read the title. He turned his attention back to the door. He shouldn't have any problems with sneaking out that night. Don't even think about it, Chuuya said, not bothering to look up from what he was reading. Dazai replied, feigning innocence. Don't even think about sneaking out. I'm going to be watching you every moment of the day until you're healed up. Good luck accomplishing that while we're at work. You're not going back until I say you can. I've already called in sick for tomorrow. Dazai crosses his arms, amused. A lot of these injuries are going to take a while to heal. Eventually, someone's going to make you go back, and then I'm going to escape. Well, I'll set up a baby monitor, so the second you act suspicious, I'll be back to stop you from being an idiot. Mori won't let me be away for so long. He might tolerate me skipping tomorrow, but any longer than that, and there'll be consequences. Chuuya paused at that. Dazai continued. I know you're trying to help, but it's only going to make things worse. I've dealt with Mori before, and I can deal with him now. Getting in the middle of this is only going to make it worse, or if we get unlucky, you get hurt. We could always leave. Dazai laughed coldly at that. Mori wouldn't allow that. Does it matter? Dazai thought about it. Getting away from Mori and his constant misgendering and controlling nature. But then he thought about Chuuya and what Mori would do to him once they were caught. They would only be able to run for so long, and he wouldn't be the reason Chuuya went through that. We both know we can't do that, Dazai told him, but thanks for the thought. Chuuya sighed. You give Mori way too much power over you. It's like you want him to destroy you. Dazai looked down at the floor. Can you at least promise you'll stay here for tonight? Mori will want me to come back in the morning. That is not an answer. Don't worry about it, Chuuya. It's not like I can do much in this condition. Against his better judgment, Dazai did end up staying the night. Eventually, Chuuya fell asleep, so he wasn't awake to see Dazai slip out the door the second the sun started to rise. He went straight to Mori. The boss acted as if nothing had happened over the past few days, and Dazai didn't dare bring it up. Mori continued to misgender him, and somehow it was even more draining than usual. Maybe Chuuya was right. Maybe he could actually surround himself with people who saw him as a guy. But no, Dazai didn't deserve to have that life. He didn't get to have good things. However, despite everything, he was grateful he got to have Chuuya in his life. It almost made life bearable. No matter what happened, he was going to make sure Chuuya stayed out of everything, even if that meant he would have to deal with Mori for the rest of his life. Okay everyone, that was Why Bother Trying by Trust Me If You Dare. I love this fic, and I forgot how gory it was. I know it might not seem gory to you, but this is on the higher level of gore stuff for me. I cannot handle much gore. Like, for goodness sake, I cannot even handle Squid Game. That's how sensitive to gore I am. Anyway, that aside, I hope you guys had a great day. I'm actually going to be posting this tomorrow from the day I'm recording, I think, because I'm going to try to spread out my uploads. So I'm posting one tonight, this one tomorrow, which is today when you get this video. Then I'm not sure about the next few days, but I'm going to record some more, see if I can get some more videos out. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to take care of yourself, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!